So starting with MLB, we'll start in the optimizer section, and this is where all of your lineup building activities ultimately will live. So you toggle between different operators here and um, different game slates. I want you to keep in mind, what game slate you are uh, playing building lineups for. It's always going to default to the uh, nearest start time. So we'll be making lineups for this 7 p.m. slate, 6 games. But if you wanted to do 8 o'clock, you can't get your lineups in by 7. You can always toggle between these here. So keep that in mind. So let's do 7 p.m. And next, I want to definitely make everybody aware of the different projection sources we have available at RotoQL. Some of the best projection sources in the business, including Baseball Prospectus, DFS Guru. These partners, you'll only be able to get them at RotoQL. Baseball Prospectus with the Prakota projections. Sile's a huge fan of these. Um, Definitely want to check these out if you're starting out. DFS Guru as well. They're updated in real time as lineups get announced throughout the day. It's very reliable. We also have Razzball Prediction Machine, DFSR. Then we've had some other, $1,000 winners to $10,000 winners using these projections as well. So um, definitely do a little research and figure out which ones you like. We're going to use Baseball Prospectus for this example. Very reliable source. They were updated 2 minutes ago, so we know that these um, are up to speed. And let's just start making a few lineups just to get the hang of this, and we can get into more lineups later if you guys are interested. But let's start with just building 5, and we can keep it light. So you definitely want to keep in mind some of these other settings here: minimum salary, and avoiding pitchers and hitters. But I want to move into the games tab, because when you're starting out and building lineups with RotoQL, yes, you can check out the optimizer and what's being offered, but you really don't want to be entering lineups with the default optimal lineup. Especially if you're in tournaments, you're trying to differentiate yourself from your competitors, hundreds of thousands of people in the same contest. You're going to want to have at least a few players that are different from the crowd. So definitely don't recommend using the optimal lineup here. You're going to want to have a couple players that are unique to you. So you can use the games tab to do that and start your research off. Now, for a lot of you that don't have a lot of time to do research, this is where you want to be. You can make a lot of quick decisions in building lineups here, especially stacking lineups. So let's start with the Kansas City-Detroit game here, for example. So I'm going to look for. I always like to start looking at, the lower price pitchers and see if there's any opportunities to get hitters who are going to be facing against these weaker pitchers. So we see Mike Pelfrey here. He's priced at 4,700, pretty low salary point. Playing on the road against Kansas City. And this is where the games tab can be really helpful. You can see where a lot of the wind is blowing. So blowing towards right field, perhaps lefties are going to have a little more favorability because the wind's blowing here. And also taking into account all of the Vegas data here that Kansas City is projected to score 5 runs as opposed to 3.5 here by Detroit, or even looking at some of the other projected run totals. 4.25 for Chicago. So Kansas City, pretty favorable hitting matchup as well, going up against Pelfrey. So with that in mind, let's just check out Pelfrey a little bit within the Players tab to get a better sense of what kind of pitcher we're going up against and can we exploit his weaknesses. So let's check out Pelfrey here. And so this is the Players tab, and if you're subscribed to different projections, you'll be able to filter out by different projection sources here. Highly recommend that, especially starting out with our tool. But as we scroll, and let's look at Pelfrey, as you can see, there's a lot of red here. Red not being very good. So we know that He's not been playing well recently, and this could be a place to take advantage of. I'm going to look at the WOBA versus WOBA stat. Now, the WOBA is weighted on base average, and this is sort of the all-in-one fantasy stat. I think for people who don't really have tons of time to go sifting through stats and research, WOBA really encompasses a lot of what you're looking for in players or going against. So you can see that Pelfrey in his last 10 starts here. If you scroll over, you can see what each of these columns signify. Not doing well in his last 10, and especially against lefties. He's a bit worse. You can see with this darker red tint. So let's look at some lefties that Pelfrey is going up against. Did I pass it? Yeah. So Pelfrey, let's see if we got any lefties, and we do. Moustakas, Hosmer, Alex Gordon, and Kendrick Morales is a switch hitter. So for this, let's stack bunch of these lefties together. And you want to, when you're stacking, Sahil is a huge proponent of this, and you want to get some hitters that are in the top of the lineup. You definitely want to stress that. So with Moustakas and Hosmer in the 2 and 4 spot, let's just add Kane so we can get those correlated players. Sahil's really emphasizes trying to find correlation. Players that are next to each other in the batting order. That's how he won that big payday last week. So we're going to do that with Kansas City. And I would do a full 5 stack here, 5-player stack. But with Hosmer and Kendrick Morales both at first base, we're not going to be able to stack them together. It's something that's been annoying me a bit with Kansas City, multiple positions. But you got to be aware of that if you're trying to stack. So with these 4, so we've stacked those 4 players, and you head back to the optimizer. And as long as they don't overlap positions, you're going to be able to create stacked lineups. We're doing 5 here, so they all have these 4 Kansas City guys, and the optimizer will then fill out the rest of the lineup according to best value related to the baseball prospectus projection, salary, points per salary. So we've got these 4 Kansas City players here. And you can see that Houston. We can see that we got some. We got Altuve here. We've got McCutchen, who's another good player. So I see Altuve batting in this one spot. Just to show you guys an example of, because with DraftKings you can stack. You can do mini stacks, so you can do as long as you're doing less than 5 of each player, you can do multiple stacks from different teams. So, and the RotoQL optimizer allows you to do this. So, it kind of depends on the strategy you want to do. But if you're really high on 2 teams that night, let's say we're looking at the Royals and Houston also with a projected runs of 5, so that's a good start. If we added Altuve, Springer, and Correa, you just got to make sure that when you do this, that the positions match up. So we've got second base, shortstop, and outfield. Yeah, this will work. So we're going to be stacking these 3 with the 4 from Kansas City. And then if we head over to the optimizer, we'll be able to stack these 3 Houston guys and 4 Kansas City guys, and they'll be able to do 5 lineups this way. Now, keeping in mind, when you do stack, you're not going to use up the total of your salary because you're forcing so many players from the same team. Usually the salaries will not fit, so you can see some of these lineups not using like $1,400 salary, $1,500 salary, but having these correlated players in the stack lineup, there's been studies out there that lineups that contain stacks in baseball can work in tournaments and cash games. They tend to place better than ones without. So keep that in mind. Stack lineups definitely one strategy to go for. And there's a lot of players like Sahu who have done very well with that. So that's where you can create stack lineups. We're going to remove these so we can check out some of the other features in the tool. Does anybody have any questions about the Games tab, stacking? Definitely want to make sure about position eligibility. If you're going to try to stack 2 first basemen like Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez, it's not going to work because DraftKings doesn't allow you to, or FanDuel, none of these sites allow you to stack from the same position. So keep that in mind when doing this. You're going to need to pick from multiple positions in order to make the stacks work. All right, so I showed some stack lineups. Wanted to also highlight the player section a little bit more because we've added coloring into this section, and now it's going to be a lot easier to do research by just scanning the different columns and section. You can figure out which players are trending up and which have been doing better from a fantasy standpoint. So let's check out these. So you can see with these projection columns, if you subscribe to any of our projection sources, DFS Group, Baseball Prospectus, you're going to be able to access these within the Players tab. And this is super powerful. Nobody else allows you to do this. No other DFS tool allows you to do this, which is really interesting. If any of you guys have used Fantasy Pros, or even if you look at Yahoo or ESPN consensus rankings, it's a similar thing. You got different experts giving their opinion of a player side by side on a daily basis, and we can then filter out players and sort of hone in on what we're looking for specifically to build our lineups. So let's say you wanted to find hitters that are projected for at least 7.5 points for DFS Guru and also Baseball Prospectus. So that really shrinks the list down, and we've got players at first base, second base, third base, outfield, and we've got Correa at shortstop. So, if you don't have a ton of time and you're subscribed to a couple of different projection sources, you can filter out by 2, 3, 4, as many as you want, and then simply, we could add all of these players if we wanted, and let the optimizer sort of sort out these players within how many lineups you want. So let's head back in here just to show you guys. So yeah, by doing this, we only did 5 lineups. Let's do a few more. We did like 25 lineups. If you do 25 lineups, you're going to be able to have all these players pretty much showing up, except for catcher, and we didn't mark any pitchers off. So they'll fill the rest up. But as you can see, we've got a slew of different lineups. Now, when you're creating, more than a few lineups, you're going to want to manage how much exposure you have to each of these players, and that's what we do in this player exposures tab here. As you see, it's in red right here. So we click on over here and see Chris Bryant, Correa are at 100% exposure. So if you want it, let's say you were a little worried about Correa, you thought he had a good projection, but maybe you wanted to spread the wealth a little bit, bring him down to 80. He gets brought down to 80, and once that happens, you're going to have other players replacing him normally at his position. So Marcus Semien, 12% here, and he's likely filled up with other. Yeah, okay, so he's going to be filled up with some other multi-position players like maybe Zobrist. So you can adjust your the amount that a player is included in your 25 lineup. So Josh Reddick, bring him down to 50, and it's going to adjust it as much as possible according to the amount of players that are are here. So that's really how you manage lineups. This is like Sahil's bread and butter here. He really has to manage this on a daily basis, doing um, 300, 400 lineups. But and if you're doing that, it's vital for you to do that as well. But even doing 25 lineups, if you want to manage what percent you're exposed to certain guys, definitely should use this feature. So from there, when you're ready to save your lineups, you can go to a bulk save feature and just select all, save all, and then head over to save lineups, and everything we just bulk saved is going to be available here. So if you want to save lineups in the morning and come back later, want to sort of go through them or see what you did in the morning, recommend saving lineups. They'll always be available if you log out and come back later. So definitely save lineups and they'll be stored here. And then lastly, when you're ready to bring them over to DraftKings or FanDuel, and we only did DraftKings for this example, got nothing against FanDuel, but the DraftKings file, which I won't be able to upload to DraftKings for you guys, but because I'm in New York, but we do have support people who can help you out with uploading if you don't know how to do it or having issues. But our Excel file here has got all the player IDs. We have some. There are some tools out there that don't set you up for success with that Excel file, and we have it ready to go. Just simply bring it over to DraftKings, upload it, you're good to go.